Hey, what's up? I'm Cody the Coin Raptor, and today has been nothing short of a phenomenal day for the crypto community, for Bitcoin maxis, for anybody who's a fan of freedom and choice. It is a fantastic day today. And you know what? We're just going to get right into it because I am so excited to bring you guys fantastic news, my thoughts on the market, and my expectations for what it all means for the Bitcoin price. So, Bitcoin over the last 7 days is up 8.5%, which is fairly nice. Ethereum, on the other hand, is up almost 16% in the last 7 days. Now, what happened today was exactly what many people have been speculating about would happen, and that is the approval of a Bitcoin spot ETF. Okay. The SEC released a statement here from a very sad looking Gary Gensler saying that they have approved the listing and trading of a number of spot Bitcoin exchange traded product shares. And he goes on to further explain his point. There's kind of a little bit of sour grapes in here, but I do want to go ahead and point out some very interesting parts of the statement that Gary Gensler put out, the head of the SEC. Now, he puts out the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia held that the commission failed to adequately explain its reasoning in disapproving the listing and trading of Grayscale's proposed ETP, exchange traded products. The court therefore vacated the Grayscale order and remanded the matter to the commission. So, what this means is Grayscale has essentially paved the way for Bitcoin spot ETFs to be approved at the SEC. And the reason for that was because Grayscale had previously sued the SEC, and essentially they had tried to figure out why the SEC would approve a futures-based Bitcoin ETF and not a spot Bitcoin ETF. And so the court sided with Grayscale, and it was remanded back. The decision was vacated, remanded back to the matter of the commission, and the commission decided that basically they have to approve it because they're losing this battle in the courts. So, despite what the SEC actually wanted, the courts came through on this case, and Grayscale will be one of the approved Bitcoin spot ETFs. All right. Now, as you guys may know, I've been skeptical that they would actually approve a Bitcoin spot ETF anytime soon, and I was very sure that it would take a change of personnel and leadership at the SEC in order for us to finally get that. But I'm happy to be proven wrong, and now we actually find ourselves in the best possible situation. Okay, so I want to go ahead and explain how this is going to affect crypto and how this is going to affect Bitcoin. In fact, we can go ahead and start by just looking at the market cap total for all of crypto, and you can see that just over the last day or so, it went from 1.7 trillion up to 1.768 trillion. So the market added $68 billion worth of value in one day because of this decision, okay? Just amazing. Just phenomenal, all right? Now, that being said, if you go ahead and we look at the all-time high, we're nowhere near the all-time high. So all-time high going all the way back up, almost 3 trillion. Right now, we're barely at 1.7. Okay, so there's still a lot of room left to go in the total crypto market cap. But we can look across the board. Altcoins up, stablecoins up, DeFi up. So this is not just about Bitcoin. This is about Bitcoin and the entirety of the crypto community. So let's go ahead and take a look at our Bitcoin chart TA here. And you can see that we have our nice little uptrend that I've drawn in. So Bitcoin is still very much within the ranges of this uptrend. We can see here that the upper part here would take us to resistance at about 48 or so, 48,500. That's where I would expect we would wind up getting a breakout and moving to the next level. I think that at this point, it's entirely possible. We'll see 48K again very soon. And what's really important about this decision, aside from the fact that now it gives investors more options in order to get exposure to Bitcoin, whereas with the futures ETFs, they didn't actually have to buy Bitcoin. And the only other way for traditional investors to get a sort of exposure to Bitcoin, they would have had to buy GBTC. This gives us an idea that these exchange traded funds will actually have to go out and they'll have to buy Bitcoin for basically every share that's sold to investors. So now we're going to wind up seeing demand come back into Bitcoin from traditional investors who don't want to wind up custodying the Bitcoin themselves. So Bitcoin has been accepted by traditional financial institutions. That's basically what this means. The SEC has given the green light for the traditional financial instruments to touch Bitcoin. And this is basically the openings of a floodgate. Not only could we see a spot Ethereum ETF approved, but you could also see a spot Solana ETF approved or a spot Cardano ETF. I mean, there's so many other directions that we can take this. And this is just an absolutely fantastic sign of things to come. But returning back here to Bitcoin, now we also talked a couple of days ago about the bullish percent index and how that was abnormally low here during the 9th of January, so yesterday here. It actually went all the way down to 9. And so now we're starting to see here that if you had actually taken that reading, which this is one of my favorite readings that you can look at for the chart, I made a whole video about it of where you can find this specific indicator. You would have probably bought in at anywhere about 43, 44,000 or so, and you would have caught this nice little move up here from 43 to 44 all the way up to about 47,000, 48K, and you would be sitting pretty right there. So normally with this Bitcoin bullish percent index, that is an inverse. It's an inverse indicator. So when the bullishness is low, that is normally seen as an indicator to actually execute a trade or buy or do whatever you want, right? And again, do you guys do your own research, not financial advice, but it is one of my absolute favorite indicators, and it has been proven right yet again for the Bitcoin price. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, when I say Bitcoin has been accepted by the traditional finances, this brings me back to one of my favorite books that I've gone back and actually reread, and that is The Bitcoin Standard. Okay, leave a comment below if you guys have actually read this book. It's a fantastic book that describes the gradual acceptance of Bitcoin in the traditional financial community. And the whole core thesis of this book is that eventually the traditional financial institutions, banks, central banks, will have to get a portion of Bitcoin in order to use that as a digital gold to secure their traditional money, their fiat. Okay, much in the same way that gold was used. All right, so we are well on the timeline first predicted by this book that came out back in 2018, which feels like a lifetime ago. But the idea that Bitcoin will be held not only by banks but also by central banks, I think we're getting one step closer to that reality. And I don't have to tell you how crazy that would make the price and how insanely high the demand would be at that point when the banks are going out and are trying to get a hold of a very finite supply of 21 million Bitcoin. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the current Bitcoin futures volume and open interest listed by the CME Group. Now, this is largely seen as a substitute for a Bitcoin spot ETF. Now, Bitcoin spot ETFs have been approved. Now we can see that this is going to wind up most likely translating into spot volume and spot demand, actual demand for Bitcoin instead of just these futures contracts. You can see over the past couple of days there have been an abnormally high volume and open interest for Bitcoin over the 8th and the 9th of January. I'm sure it'll be for the 10th as well. But it just goes to show you that the run up to the announcement for a Bitcoin spot ETF approval has been also played on by interested traditional investors who normally wouldn't be able to go and just buy a Bitcoin and self-custody it. So I do expect that this volume and open interest will flow into demand for Bitcoin into the spot ETF in the future. Now, if we go ahead and take a look at the Bitcoin on exchanges currently, we can see that this is at an extremely low level. We're sitting at a level that we haven't seen for almost all of Bitcoin's history, at least going back to what we have here at CryptoQuant all the way back in 2021. We've lost a significant amount of Bitcoin off exchanges, and we continue to hover at the lows or near the lows for Bitcoin on the exchanges. So when you have demand that comes into contact with a supply that's both finite and not readily available on exchanges, you can get some absolutely fantastic movements in price. And so that's why I said in my earlier crypto predictions video that I do believe that it's possible that we can see $70,000 Bitcoin by the end of the year. So that'd be new all-time high for Bitcoin by the end of the year. But this is going to take time to materialize. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a little bit of time first for that to actually happen. And I personally don't expect that you're going to snap your fingers and it's going to happen. So my advice is always to remain patient, just when it comes to this whole environment. But things are picking up at a rapid pace. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the Bitcoin's options market. I saw something very interesting happen with Bitcoin options. So if we go ahead and take a look at the open interest by expiration date, you can see the 26th of January is the largest by far of any expiration, of any expiry day. And so what you're looking at here is by the end of the end of January, the 26th of January, you have a massive number of call options, $2.5 billion worth of Bitcoin call options being placed. And you can see here that the largest amount is concentrated at $50,000. So traders right now are betting that Bitcoin will be at or above $50,000 by the end of the month, or at least by the 26th of January. Very interesting information. Very and you can do this you can basically do with this information what you will, but this really shows that traders right now are being incredibly bullish on the Bitcoin price by the end of the month. I got $50,000 for one Bitcoin is pretty phenomenal. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is what's going on this week. Okay, so we talked about this a little bit earlier in the week, but I think it's important for us to reiterate and go back and talk about it again. Now, on Thursday and Friday, we're getting multiple earnings for companies, and especially on Friday, you're going to be having a number of bank stocks that are going to be reporting. And the reason why I think this is important is because today's Bitcoin spot ETF decision can have an absolute cascade effect on the way these traditional financial institutions take a look at Bitcoin and how they're allocating their funds. Now, we can see, I don't expect it's going to happen this earnings quarter, but maybe a couple of quarters down the line or a year or two, you'll start to see big banks like Wells Fargo and JP Morgan and Bank of America start considering having a Bitcoin reserve, and it'll be listed on their balance sheets. And this is something I'm going to be looking for, and I do think this will wind up happening before too long. Okay, but those are going to be released. These earnings for these major banks are going to be going on Friday. Now, on Thursday, we also have CPI. Okay, that's going to be really important. And Friday, we have PPI. So we're going to have some pretty major volatility throughout the week. And I think it's possible that if we get a CPI and a PPI that come in lower than expected, that we could wind up seeing some more bullish price action for Bitcoin and traditional equities. So make sure you guys are aware of that. We're going to see some serious volatility by the end of the week, and plan for that accordingly. So that's all I've got for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think about finally getting that Bitcoin spot ETF. I know I'll be doing a little dance over here. And if you think it's possible that we'll see any additional crypto-based ETFs get approved this year. I'm Cody the Coin Raptor, and I hope to catch you guys in the next video.